Are you on edge? Come on. We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs bi-monthly on MaximizeU.life and iTunes. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and courageous conversations about pushing boundaries, exploring our rough edges, and walking between the worlds of what is and what is yet to be. Join me, Sandra Bargman, on the edge of every day on MaximizeU.life. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to The Edge of Every Day, now at MaximizeU.life and streaming on your favorite podcast platforms. Are you a change maker? Do you walk between worlds, between cultures, between systems? If you answered yes to any of these questions, The Edge of Every Day is the place for you. In a nutshell, this podcast is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we're resistant to change, those places where paradox and contradicting identities live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both individually and collectively. We live in edgy, challenging times. We cannot keep looking away from the ugly, from the difficult, and silence is no longer an option. Life isn't black or white, it's both, and I want to talk about that. I want to face the tension of paradox, and I want to engage in the hard conversations. I want to explore the rough edges between our light-filled brilliance and our dark, shadowy corners, because the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks for tuning in. What is embodied spirituality? What is somatic shamanism? Today, we are live in the hive with author, teacher, and embodiment and spirituality-oriented theologian Kay Louise Aldred for a compelling conversation about spiritual needs, safe spaces, understanding the nervous system, embodied ways of knowing, and neurodiversity. So without further ado, it is time to introduce our guest. Kay Louise Aldred is a visionary change maker, a teacher, liberation, embodiment, and spirituality-oriented theologian, writer, and published author. She catalyzes individual, institutional, and collective evolution and well-being through education, embodiment, and creative meaning-making strategies via interconnected insights and approaches, which combine metacognition, intuition, and instinct. A trauma-informed mentor and facilitator, Kay offers online and in-person consultancy, training, and resources. She is a prolific writer and is the author of Somatic Shamanism, Your Fleshy Knowing as the Tree of Life, Making Love with the Divine, Sacred, Ecstatic, and Erotic Experiences, Mentorship with Goddess, Growing Sacred Womanhood, and Embodied Education, Creating Safe Space for Learning, Facilitating, and Sharing, all published through Girl God Books. As a lifelong learner, Kay has expanded her skill set, adding well-being coach, yin yoga teacher, somatic educator, trainer, and advanced practitioner in energy and shamanic medicine, and sacred feminine leader to her CV. Most recently, Kay certified as a victim focus accredited trainer. Kay focuses her efforts on embodied spirituality and embodied education, specializing in approaches to meet our very human spiritual needs within society. She specifically champions feminist, nervous system friendly, and neuro-inclusive structures in education, health, and community spaces. Kay is autistic and passionate about increasing awareness of the strengths of neurodivergence. She is an associate at Neurodiverse Connection, a neurodivergent-led community interest company set up to improve support and outcomes for the neurodivergent population. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you.
I'm overwhelmed. You know, on my LinkedIn, I call myself a multi-hyphenate. And I mean, and I've that word is kind of caught on. Lots of people are using it, and my friends are like, "Oh, I heard multi-hyphenate." Yes. Researching you, learning about you on LinkedIn and researching you and diving in and you know, even before I asked you to come on to the podcast, I talk about a multi-hyphenate. This woman is multi-passionate, multi-hyphenated. I mean, wow. Absolutely incredible. I'm so thrilled and grateful to have you on the Edge of Everyday podcast.
It really is my pleasure, my honor. I'm delighted that we have connected. And when you read that through, I was kind of like, oh gosh, I hope I can do justice to the work that you do.
Well, thank you for that. Your presence here has done that already. So there. So I do like to share how I know my guests. And yes, indeed, it was on LinkedIn, listeners, that I discovered Kay. She is, it's through a mutual friend brought me to your attention, or you to me. And I'm sure from commenting on something on LinkedIn. Lynn Sedgmore, Dr. Lynn Sedgmore, who we have also had on the Edge of Everyday podcast, not once, but twice. Shout out to Lynn.
Yes, indeed.
So, yeah, she's a glorious human being. And Lynn, if you're listening, we talked about you in pre-chat too. So I have two questions that I like to ask all of my guests, and I'm particularly kind of heartbroken open to ask this of you, given the work that you do, the profound open-heartedness of all that you do in exploring the masks we wear, our identities, all of that. So I ask all of my guests, what identity do you lead with?
Transparency and congruency, if I may have to. And I can give you an example of how I know I do that. I have always done that, which has led me into difficult situations because it's not always reciprocated. But when I was a teacher, my children actually went to the school that I was teaching in, and they said, "Mum, you are the same in the classroom as you are as a mum with your friends. There's no difference other than obviously, you know, you're not hugging the kids. They were secondary kids, things like that." And you know, it has been in terms of it's not always met with understanding that there's no edge to me, if that makes sense. What I am inside, what I am outside. And you know, some past people have said, oh, you know, you need to have more of a boundary, or you do need personas, and of course we do. But that is how I try to lead.
Yeah.
In answer to your question.
Well, the profound strength that it takes to indeed lead with transparency, and yeah, you know, it's really hard in the face of, particularly, I know you're very hypersensitive, and I consider myself very sensitive too, but it's hard to keep that mask, that warrior mask on. And I don't know that transparency isn't a warrior mask. I mean, if you can uphold your I know who I am in the face of not being met properly or taken advantage of. I mean, as long as you're bodily safe, but I think transparency like vulnerability is just so powerful. So my next question is, what worlds do you walk between?
Possibly too many.
Yes.
And walking between the worlds, as I know that you do and your guests do, means that I find that I'm not always understood by the outside world, because they're like, how can you have that many specialisms? And then how do we brand you, and what do we know we're going to get from you? But that's something that I've experienced. However, an answer to your question, education. So professionally, I work the world of education, and really I'd say 11 right through to university education range, and adult personal development. And then theology, although that's an interesting topic in and of itself, as how we are theologically in the UK at the moment, with the safeguarding issues that are within this established church that we have. And then spirituality, and earth-based, almost kind of like kind of pagan side as well. I walk that world. They're the three. I think that, I mean, I work also within healthcare a lot within my associate work. So the world of the public healthcare system, I walk in that world as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really do relate to the world of not being understood, not being able to be branded. Yeah. And again, I find strength in that. I mean, I'm a part of and the way that I know Lynn is through the Edgewalker community. And every Edgewalker understands that, as someone who walks at the edges and cross-pollinates all of these communities, that, you're not in the center, you're not the status quo, you're not the brand. In fact, you're looking to the future to further it, to expand it. So how can you be that brand? I love it. I love it. Well, the thing that I just had to have Kay Louise on for was when I saw Somatic Shamanism. Kay was, and for my listeners, I'm showing this fabulous cover with artwork by Kat Shaw, who I had the pleasure of meeting when I was at the Goddess Conference in Glastonbury. And in fact, she inspired me, and I wore it today for our conversation. She inspired me because she had it on. And I was like, where did you get that? The Fuck the Patriarchy necklace. But yes, her artwork is extraordinary. And I've seen that she's been on some of your other books as well, and many of the Girl God books. Just fantastic. And I love the title. I love the fact that you've gone there with shamanism. You've just said, you know what, I'm using that word. Just like you with like making love with the divine. It was like, oh, a little provocative. So first of all, we'll get into the quote unquote appropriation of the word shamanism. But I first want to ask you, Somatic Shamanism, the full title is Your Fleshy Knowing as the Tree of Life, which I absolutely adored. What is Somatic Shamanism?
So, shamanism, a shaman is someone who knows. Someone who knows, okay? And yeah, we can get into the quote unquote cultural appropriation of the term. All cultures have ones who know. They take on different names. And certainly Celtic shamanism, which is my kind of indigenous kind of connection to the shamanic lineage. Yes. So I can feel like I can embed that with authenticity and congruence. But if a shaman is someone who knows, somatic shamanism is one who knows in and through their embodiment in their whole being. And so somatic shamanism is where we journey for that knowledge, that knowing. We don't go up and out, we don't dissociate, we go in and through, and we go in and through our body as the tree of life. And in doing that, we're able to access those strands of ancestral lineage, which are still pulsing through the carbon of our bones, the blood. And we are also, through our embodiment, able to root into the land we're currently living in and go in and through the earth connection of that land and gain even deeper knowledge. So that's how I've come to know shamanism in an congruent, aligned way, regardless of my training, which was not congruent for me.
We're going to touch on that too. Yeah, oh man, yeah. No, I so love that. And when I started I have a LLC called Sacred Stages, and I got the idea for it when I was in seminary, and the ancient roots of theater were one and the same with the spirituality of the Greek culture, and where it was believed that the actors were the shamans, the knowers, bringing back the nuggets of wisdom, channeling it for their audiences. So the understanding that the quote unquote appropriation of this word, I really have a hard time with that. It's not that I'm not calling myself a Peruvian shaman ever, but nor does it distract from the enormous respect that I have for all of those cultures and their shamans. But I have a problem with it, the notion that it's being appropriated. And so that's why I loved your title. I think people need to open up to the deep wisdom of what that word means, as you've just so eloquently shared.
Yes. And I would never call myself a shaman, ever.
Yeah.
But I practice, I practice somatic shamanism, which is my alignment of how journeying and knowing happens. So that's how I've aligned that. And I defend that in the book because we knew that would be, we had a lot of
trigger.
Title. Yeah, it was critiqued, and I listened carefully and understood the critiques. And like I say, I do not name myself as a shamanism, but I name the practice that I've cultivated as somatic shamanism. And the fleshy knowing is within the flesh rather than up and out through the journey.
So brilliant, and I love that you just stuck with it. And you're expanding our understanding. And no, I'm here to push that thought outward. I'm here to disrupt that and expand it and help people. Well, there's 4 different parts of this journey, and I've got the map here. I'm going to put it up. And for those of you who are listening, you're just going to have to get the book. It's Becoming the Tree of Life, moving into constructing your wheel, your shamanistic wheel, discerning your archetypes and allies, which I loved, and then accessing your fleshy knowing. Now, Becoming the Tree of Life, I'm writing a play, Kay. Lilith is at the heart of it. And her journey, this book is completely in alignment with all of the ideas, all of the concepts I want to weave into this play that I've been weaving in, and becoming, knowing that you are the tree of life. I mean, I wish I had a camera on me while I was reading this book, workbook, as you call it, just so of the moment for me. And it's going to be a great resource for my playwriting. But anyway, so how does, embodiment spirituality, I, of course, understand that completely the second I hear it. But for our listeners who are coming into this and might not, can you give an overview, elaborate on what is embodiment spirituality?
Yes, so our spirituality is the action, the practice through which we meet our spiritual needs. And if based on research, so the theologian in me wanted to understand the research that had been done on what spiritual needs are. And they're our very human needs of belonging, connection, meaning, and purpose.
Yeah.
So the practices we do to get those four needs met is what we call spirituality. And there are so many different ways of accessing spirituality these days. I mean, I can't
Truly,
believe what
mind-blowing
it's got in
number.
the last, yeah. But embodiment spirituality is, I want to uncouple spirituality from capitalism, from consumerism. And therefore, I want to make it free. I'm an educationalist. I'm a public educationalist. So how can we make an even playing field on people to be able to access their spirituality, which is innate anyway in the human self when we are in our parasympathetic nervous system, in our birthright, our rest and digest. So it's a social justice action, embodiment spirituality. It's an action of saying this is our birthright, being in a human body to experience spirituality. It's how we're meant to live. Yes. And therefore, it's the practice to help people to access this. I mean, my long-term aim is all the writings that I've done are woven into the school education and healthcare system as part of rehabilitation and support with loneliness and all the things that are happening in the world at the moment. But I hope I haven't gone too much on a tangent.
No, not at all. It's fantastic.
That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an enormous question, and you totally didn't go off on a tangent. And, I'm inclined, of course, to ask your pathway there. I know that you were, that Christianity was a part, I don't know that it still is, but maybe it is. Tell me the journey, your spiritual journey. I mean, I have a sense that you popped out of the womb, like I say about myself. I popped out of the womb with the antenna, like tuned in to the energy. That was completely you. And what was your youth like? And go tell us all about your spiritual journey, Kay.
I was born into a home with a psychologist father who was deeply embedded in high Anglican Church of England Christianity, and an atheist scientific PhD mother who is a zoologist. So I had this huge traction and tension in the home of my parents, and so I had both the critique and high Anglican, that's high church Christianity to go at. And I suppose I aligned with my dad, and he was very creative as well, and loved acting and theatre and things. And so it was I was born into it.
The church is theatre, by the way.
It really is. And high Anglican
some serious costuming.
And yeah, high Anglican's like Catholicism. There was incense and things,
Oh, so totally. Yeah.
So interesting. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on my grandmother. She
Let's do it. You heard it here first, my listener.
I was going to funerals and supporting her when I was 3, hiding under the pews. I was brought up in the theatre of the church, and then was burying ladybirds and giving them the last rites as soon as I could talk. So you were right, I popped out of the womb trying to facilitate spiritual practice and ritual. But I was from a very the north of England, which there was a mining family, so my parents were the first generation university, but my other family were workers, for want of a better word, and we didn't have time for such things, to explore philosophy or psychology. And so again, I only realized at that point that my options to study this was through academia. And so then went through the GCSE and the A level and the degree level and studied looking for the divine academically, biblical theology and so on, which never satisfied me. In fact, it probably made me more ill. But I kept looking. Then I went into—
It's hard to resist in the patriarchal society too. It's like it's baked in.
It
Anyway.
is. And there's no role models at all in the feminine side of spirituality, that deeply nurturing side of spirituality was very logos orientated rather than eros. So, but I wanted to help. I was a great desire in supporting young people's explore ethical and moral questions, and so went on and taught RE in our public state schooling system here, and then had children. And after I had my children very close together, I then decided to go back and study theology again at masters. This time, I did embodiment theology and liberation theology and immersed in feminist theologies. And that was the first opening, 2007, 4, 5, into, there's something out there. We didn't have the social media access to breath work and priestessing and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't a thing then. Certainly not in where I was located in the UK. So there was the taste academically, and it's set off something in my body, particularly liberation theology. It was like, I'm awake. People are talking about the body. Here we go. And then at that point, I turned my back on academia, taught a little bit to earn some money for a while, and then I got unwell, and that's the shamanic path opening through illness and burnout. And it was, the mind slowed down. I had brain fog, I couldn't access it, and I went into an experiential path. And through that experiential path of regulating the nervous system, immersing in all sorts of spiritualities, I then realized, there's a split, eros, logos, the heart is where it's at. How can I create a new modality out of everything I've learned that is free for everyone to access? Because that's my benchmark. Yeah. It's free and it's non-dogmatic, non-doctrinal, and we can make it our own in our cultures that we're in. People would say that's nonsense, it can't happen. I don't believe it. As an educationalist, I know that's really important and can happen.
You bet. Absolutely can happen. Wow. So the regulation of the body that you just mentioned makes me, because I'm looking at time and wanting to move also into just realized there's a question I forgot to ask you at the top. I'll swing around and ask you it later. So yeah, I mean, the nervous system and what you discovered about regulating your system, and I know that you what is the relationship what was your journey into neurodiversity? I mean, I don't want to lead you. I don't want to lead. I want you to tell the story. What was your journey into that?
Yes. So I'll try and keep it brief, because obviously I know you want to move through the questions, but
don't worry. Please elaborate. It's me wanting to just stop asking about your theological journey, knowing that I want to get to this too. So please elaborate.
Let's see if I can bring the strands together. When I went into experiential spirituality, I dissociated even more. Yeah. And was doing breath work and Kundalini and all the typical access points into what we think is getting well and regulated, but actually for me was spiritual bypassing, as I found.
Yeah, totally. Bam. Say that again. Spiritual bypassing, people. I am so with you.
It's blissful. It's so blissful to leave the body even more, and the pain that I had and the burnout, and be out there and on breath work and on Kundalini and so on. But at some point I had a family and I needed to be able to function in the world. And if I really want to walk my talk, which is be that change maker, I have to be able to deal with the hard,
the dark, the edge of every day.
Exactly. So I realized my nervous system was shot, completely dysregulated, and had been, because I had a lot of trauma, but when I was younger, but that hadn't helped. The journey I'd just been on spiritually hadn't helped. So I got introduced to that work via Irene Lyon. I'll send you the link because she is my teacher, and everything I know about the nervous system I learned through her. And I understood the nervous system and what I needed to do in order to start to regulate. And it's basically be human and drink when I need to and start to be able to contain and be a holder of many emotions. As I did that, my spirituality, the well of the spirituality, the well of the being came out through grounding into being human and all that spectrum of emotions that it is to be human. And I feel so emotional. I found the divine within through, thank you, Irene, her work in my humanness, my very, very fractured at times and yet fully whole humanness. And in that, I realized that my neurotype was not like the mainstream. And you know, in terms of these definitions that we use, it's useful now, and we're going to realize that no human minds are the same in the long run. But for now, the society disables me from how we are structured and work, and therefore I was diagnosed autistic very late by our local health system. And the realization of the extent of the disabling nature of human structures and societies is distressing and something I'm still working through. But there's true self, and there's joy, and there's my creativity, and it's all through coming down into the body and understanding my nervous system and working with it, regulation. I hope that has tied it all together.
Totally. But did you, I mean, I know it hasn't been long that you've known that you've gotten the diagnosis. Did you have any inkling? I mean, throughout your life, obviously there was, I mean, this is so helpful because the word neurodiversity and the neurotypical person, which I'm not 100% sure I am, quite frankly. I think I'm a little on the spectrum myself with massive sensitivities and to my environment sometimes. But it's so helpful to me to get this information out because I'm a voracious learner, and I don't really know much at all about this community. So what a gift to hear you talk about this and to learn so much more through your work and the association that you're a part of. So did you have clues along your way that, can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So neurodiversity is the collective human minds and how they are. And neurodivergence is where you present and you think and you behave and you process in a way that is you do not benefit from norms of society. I'm not even going to say that, I'm redefining it all the time. So neurodivergent means that we are not privileged by the norms of how we operate in society,
the status quo.
The education system. Exactly. So yes, of course, looking back, I was not the typical young teenager. I had hyperfixation, hyperfocuses, special interests, can't process LED lights. I become situationally mute if there's a strip light above me or LED. I'll gag at certain smells, like really somatic experience of that, which caused a lot of trauma because I masked up to not seem different. And therefore that regulation frees up self and your quirkiness and your difference. And neurodiversity says that humans have huge strengths in some areas, so creativity, empathy, hyper-empathy, but we may have differences in other areas. So for me, it's like executive functioning. I can't pack to go on holiday. I find it hard to sequence meals. Things that you would think, well, surely with your level of qualification, you can do that. No, it's a difference. I just have poor executive functioning.
Yeah.
So that's how I've learned that. And the intersection with spirituality for me, I see a lot within the spiritual community, behaviors that are in alignment with neurodivergent individuals. And a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is around creating safeguarding policies and procedures for neurodivergent individuals in spirituality and religious settings. So because we need support with our differences sometimes.
Yes. And safe places, safe spaces where you can express them and we can all learn.
Exactly.
So I have so many questions. What is a safe space for you?
Great question. I had a lovely discussion with someone recently who challenged me on that, said, and we can't ever create safe spaces for everybody all at once at the same time, Kay. And they introduced me to the term intentional space, which I greeted them with great gratitude. So intentional space is a safe space because we hold the intention to meet the needs of the individuals, whilst recognizing that there will be tension and rupture. And then in safe spaces, we then repair when we receive feedback. So that's one of the definitions that I gave. And safe spaces for me are sensorily friendly spaces. So there wouldn't be strip lighting. Nobody would be wearing a very strong perfume at that moment. For me, I mean, I would exist. I wouldn't attack anybody for that, but I wouldn't be able to tolerate the environment for very long. It would dysregulate me quite quickly. Yeah, I would. So does that answer that?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it just, wow. And just for all of us to be able to just simply wrap our brain around, of course there's a spectrum. Why wouldn't there be? And again, that's the beauty of it all. So were you diagnosed with it, like mental health issues, or was there sort of a stigma around? Well, you said you masked, so maybe you were able to keep some things at bay. Was there drugs involved, or how did you manage that?
I managed it through cultivating a freeze and fawn response in my nervous system. So I went into a freeze holding response and a fawn, which is a merging and a people pleasing, which we see a lot in autistic girls and young women, and that's why they're late diagnosed. The only reason I sought a diagnosis was to be able to advocate within the community with I felt credibility. It was obvious that I was autistic. ADHD as well, they would say, my differences are not in alignment with norms. And so I really got that diagnosis also to help me with my own self-advocacy when I moved through workplaces, to ask for reasonable adjustment with venue lighting and so on. There's a reason for it. And I'm not, so that was the motivation really, to be in solidarity and alignment, but also it is really useful in the workplace to have that self-advocacy piece.
Yes.
The mask drop. I mean, my husband, when I said I'm going to go pursue a diagnosis, he said, well, it's not going to change the fact that you are. It was like, it was pretty, pretty obvious. And it's so misunderstood, autism, because we have a very white male-centric diagnostic criteria. And if you're born in a female body, your presentation can be hyper empathy rather than low empathy, and so on. And so, the mask dropped anyway with perimenopause. There's the estrogen. I had less hormone to connect to people.
My Lord, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the joy of perimenopause and menopause and cracking open the door for not giving.
Yeah, exactly.
It is very freeing, I have to say. But it's also menopause and the hormones and all that even got me going down the journey of my nervous understanding, realizing what I didn't know about my nervous system, how much I didn't know, how much I didn't know about my hormones, how much I didn't understand, um, cortisol. So I'm asking my kinesiologist and I'm meditating on this and I know I have high cortisol but what do I have to be stressed about? I wasn't beaten as a child and I wasn't, I mean, other than the fact that we live in the world that we live in and those stressors. Okay. Well, on meditation, of course, all of the moments of abuse as a female in a patriarchal society began to rise, and all of the desire to be productive for a capitalistic society, all of that sort of started to become crystal clear, and childhood traumas started to reveal themselves, and it was fascinating. So then, and that's when I really lasered in on your work. And wow. So back to so I was meditating on what it must be like to be, again, I'm not convinced that I'm not on the spectrum. I would guess there's a lot of people that have never had any kind of diagnosis that are on the spectrum because we just want it to be black and white. It has to be extreme. Either you're this or you're that, as opposed to, correct?
Yeah, and they've changed the diagnostic criteria as well now. So it's not spectrum anymore, it's profile. So it's almost like a splattergraph. So you may be green and strengths, which is why I talk about strengths-based approaches to neurodivergence and neurodiversity. And so you will have some strengths in some areas of your life, might be creativity, might be empathy or whatever. Or you might be amber in other or red in other, and that it's not there's wrong, it's just the differences.
Yeah.
And so therefore we all have unique profiles of how we are as in our thoughts and in our embodiment, in our sensory and social processing. So I think getting it's only recently they've got rid of the concept of spectrum and now they're talking about profiles of neurodiversity and neurodivergence. That is going to open up a door again of normalized difference, which is powerful.
Yeah, very, very powerful. Well, I was just meditating on you and it's being autistic and its relationship to your psychic ability, your sensitivity, it's like a superpower. It's like a spiritual superpower. I mean, and I love that you really work towards educating people around the strengths of the neurodivergent population. Love that. So when you were diagnosed, I mean, did anything shift for you?
Yes, there was a lot of grief that I hadn't had the diagnosis earlier, that I had so many difficulties, particularly in the school education. And the workplace to some extent, in that I couldn't have the adjustments I needed to sustainably work for a while. And then it's difficult reading when you read about the health outcomes and of the neurodivergent population because of the trauma and the stress of living in this particularly difficult society. So there was a lot of, oh my goodness, I'm going to die, in terms of life expectancy. And then I was like, okay, you understand yourself, you make adjustments. So it was mixed emotions. And there was anger as well, but on the whole, I was prepared because I was in the waiting list for 2 years. You build to this, and then I was really curious about the draw of spirituality of the neurodivergent population, and because I do see that we're searching for an alternative world within this world, as I see it. And yeah, I've researched that and written on that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I've said that about the psychological world. I saw it in seminary. It's it it it's ripe for a lot of
Therefore, we need safeguarding.
safeguarding, indeed.
Yeah, and education.
Indeed. Indeed, indeed. So, in terms of those of us who are learning and wanting to expand ourselves into knowingness around this, what challenges what is the most challenging thing that you come across with people who you're educating around safeguarding spaces and neurodivergency? What would you want people to know that's the most important thing to know about this community, how they can wrap their brain around it to help them expand? And what action would you suggest for those of us who want to be more inclusive, who want to know more? What do we need to know, and what action or step can we take?
What do we need to know? There's not a normal human.
Bam! Thank you. Hashtag go.
Yeah, that's it. What do you need to do? What do we need to do? Pause, self-reflect, and depathologize emotion and difference. I think they're the key things, and really the more everybody who holds leadership spaces can come into their body, come down into their body, and recognize how their body runs the show. Right. And therefore, the more regulation we can bring into our bodies, the safer we are as in terms of, because we're less reactive. Yeah. Because we can be really mindful and meditate, but if this isn't being tended to, and I'm for anybody who's listening here, I'm pointing to the torso and the kidney and the adrenals and the breath and so on. If we're not tending to that, then we are being run by our physiology, our stress responses, and therefore we become reactive, and that can escalate situations. So self-reflection, embody, come down and start to work with our nervous systems. They I think, are the greatest gifts you can give to people who are experiencing difference or oppression or anything.
Yeah. Well, and I work on this with my voice work with my clients in terms of their presence, their storytelling, reconnecting to the power of their voice. I mean, I can see that this is a piece that I want to know more about, because I'm always about good communication, good presence starts with getting back in the body. That's the first step, period. The breath work and getting into the body. And so, yeah, I can see that I want to add this piece, the nervous system piece, to this understanding. Wow, wow, wow. Well, I'm looking at the time, people. I have 8 million more questions, but you heard it here. She has agreed to come on to do a podcast about her grandmother. So stay tuned for that. And then I'll be able to ask more questions. But in the meantime, before we talk about where we can find Kay, I have a quote that I pulled out because it so embodies you. And I want to share it with you. I adore those who are brave enough to strip themselves down to their bare soul, to stand in front of the whole world wearing nothing but their unique truth without fear. All of the skeletons in their closets, but chiming bones in the wind, for all to hear their melody of freedom. Stacey Martin. That's what I feel is your work in the world. You model that brilliantly. And I'm so honored to have had this conversation with you. So I'm getting all emotional, Kay, here. This is glorious. I love it. Well, you can find Kay at Kay Louise Aldred. It's going to be in the show notes, people, but Aldred, ALDRED.com. You can find all of her books at Girl God Books. It's on her website too, places where you can get them. But you can also, I mean, please get it from your local Girl God Books or your local bookstore, but you can also get it on Amazon. And you're also on LinkedIn and you're on Instagram, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners before we come to a close?
The only thing that comes to mind is the beginning with somatic shamanism. I just want to share that everything you need is within you, and there is a template. The somatic shamanism book is basically the template of me stripping away and coming back to the body and thinking, how can we actually do this? How can I stay and resource and stay connected to my knowing myself? So I think I would want to share that less was always more on the spiritual path for me, and coming into alignment and authenticity. Again, I hope that's not a tangent, but it felt really true to say there.
It's beautiful. And I live that way as well. So, and believe that as well. So thank you for those words. Well, and thank you again, Kay, for coming on to the Edge of Everyday podcast. And for our listeners, I want to tell you, as I tell you at the end of each and every episode, always remember, you are at the edge of the miraculous. Take good care till we speak again.
No man has fought.